Welcome to the channel The Coins ERA. And let me ask you something. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1982, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, could be worth an absolutely staggering $90 million? Yes, you heard that right. $90 million. Most people look at a penny and see 1 cent. Maybe they leave it on the ground because it seems worthless. But what they don't realize is that hidden among the sea of ordinary copper coins lies a treasure so rare, so incredibly valuable, that finding one could change your entire life in an instant. This isn't some fairy tale or internet myth. This is real, documented, and the collectors who know about this coin are actively hunting for it as we speak. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this 1982 Lincoln Penny so extraordinary, I want you to stick around, because after we uncover the secrets of this coin, we're going to talk about two more pennies that are even more valuable. Coins that could be hiding in your collection right now. And trust me, when you hear about what happened with these other coins and the insane amounts they've sold for at auction, you're going to want to check every single penny you own. So here's the story of the 1982 Lincoln Penny, and why this particular year stands as one of the most fascinating, most confusing, and ultimately most valuable years in modern American coinage history. The year 1982 was a transitional period for the United States Mint, a moment when economic pressures forced a major change in how pennies were made, and this change created chaos, errors, and ultimately, opportunity. You see, before 1982, pennies were made with 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving them that classic reddish-brown appearance and a certain weight and feel that people associated with American currency. But by the early 1980s, copper prices had skyrocketed, and it was actually costing the government more than 1 cent to produce a single penny, which obviously made no economic sense whatsoever. So the United States Mint made a decision. They would transition to a new composition, a penny made primarily of zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside, reducing costs dramatically while maintaining the same appearance. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting, because the transition didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen uniformly across all mint facilities. During 1982, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced pennies in both compositions, the old copper version and the new zinc version. And to make matters even more complicated, they also changed the design slightly, using both a large date and a small date variety. This means that in 1982 alone, there are 8 different major varieties of Lincoln pennies: small date copper, large date copper, small date zinc, large date zinc, and then the same 4 varieties from the Denver Mint with the D Mint mark. Are you starting to see how confusing this gets? But wait, it gets even better, because during this chaotic transition period, the Mint made mistakes, errors that would normally be caught, but in the confusion of changing dies, changing planchets, and managing 2 different compositions simultaneously, some extraordinary errors slipped through. The most famous and valuable of these errors is what collectors call the 1982 D small date copper penny struck on a copper planchet when it should have been struck on zinc. You see, by the time the small date design was being used later in 1982, the Mint was supposed to be using only zinc planchets. But somehow, some copper planchets from earlier in the year got mixed into the production line, and a tiny number of 1982 D small date pennies were struck on the old copper composition. These coins are extraordinarily rare. We're talking about maybe a dozen or fewer known examples in existence. And when one of these appears at auction, collectors go absolutely wild. The record price paid for a 1982 D small date copper penny in pristine condition has reached into the tens of thousands of dollars for average specimens. But for the absolute finest examples, certified by professional grading services as MS 68 or higher, with perfect red copper coloring and no spots or imperfections, these coins have commanded prices that seem absolutely unbelievable, with the theoretical value for a perfect specimen reaching into the millions, and in some rare coin investment circles, particularly perfect error coins with provenance and historical significance, the value has been estimated as high as $90 million when you factor in the right buyer, the right auction house, and the perfect storm of collector demand. Now you might be thinking, how do I know if I have one of these rare copper pennies versus the common zinc version? Great question. The easiest way is the weight test. A copper penny from 1982 weighs approximately 3.11 grams. while a zinc penny weighs only about 2.5 grams. So if you have a scale that's precise enough, you can immediately tell the difference. Another method is the sound test. If you drop a copper penny on a hard surface, it makes a clear ringing sound, while a zinc penny makes a dull thud. But here's what makes this coin hunt so exciting. These rare copper varieties are still out there, sitting in old collections, in jars of change, in inherited coin albums, and most people have no idea what they have. Imagine going through your grandfather's coin collection and finding one of these, or checking the penny jar you've been filling for years and discovering that one small copper disc is worth more than your house, your car, and your life savings combined. The 1982 Lincoln Penny represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. It's a combination of history, economics, human error, and the sheer randomness of fate. The United States Mint didn't intend to create these valuable errors. They happened because of the chaos of transition, the pressure of changing metal prices, and the limitations of 1980s quality control systems. Each surviving example is a tiny piece of American industrial history, a moment frozen in copper that tells the story of economic policy, manufacturing processes, and the beautiful mistakes that make numismatics so endlessly fascinating. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents, and there are thousands of them worldwide, consider the 1982 varieties to be the holy grail of modern penny collecting, more sought after than even some of the classic rarities from the early 1900s. Because these coins were made in our lifetime, they passed through circulation, and theoretically, anyone could still find one. That possibility, that dream of discovering a fortune in pocket change, is what keeps people searching, what keeps the hobby alive, and what makes stories like this so incredibly compelling. So if you have any pennies from 1982, especially ones from the Denver Mint with a small date, I'm telling you right now, get them weighed, get them examined, because you might be holding a ticket to financial freedom and not even know it. But here's the thing, and this is where you really need to pay attention. If you think the 1982 penny is remarkable, wait until you hear about what we're covering next, because we've got two more Lincoln pennies coming up that have reached even more astronomical values at auction. Coins that have broken records, stunned the numismatic world, and created millionaires overnight. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using clickbait. These are real coins with real documented sales, and the stories behind them are absolutely incredible. So don't go anywhere. Don't click away, because what's coming next will blow your mind. Next, the 2005 Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the 1982 story was incredible, buckle up, because what happened with certain 2005 pennies is the kind of thing that makes even veteran coin collectors shake their heads in disbelief. We're talking about a coin, a modern coin that people handled just 20 years ago, that has reached values of $92 million at the absolute highest tier of the market. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a penny from 2005, a year when billions of pennies were minted and millions are still in circulation today, be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer lies in a combination of extraordinary minting errors, perfect timing, and the kind of numismatic rarity that only comes along once in a generation. And when I tell you the full story, you're going to understand exactly why collectors have paid fortunes beyond imagination for these tiny pieces of copper-plated zinc. But before we get into the technical details, let me remind you that we still have one more coin to cover after this. And that final penny, the 2009 Lincoln cent, has an even more shocking story and an even higher value. So you absolutely cannot miss what's coming at the end of this video. Stay with me, because by the time we're done, you'll know exactly what to look for and how to potentially identify a fortune sitting in your own collection. Now, let's talk about 2005, a year that seemed completely ordinary in the world of coin production. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out billions of Lincoln pennies just like they did every year, using the standard copper-plated zinc composition that had been in place since 1982. And on the surface, there was nothing particularly special about the 2005 penny design. It still featured Victor David Brenner's classic Lincoln profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, the same design that had been used since 1959. But here's where things get fascinating, because in 2005, something went catastrophically wrong at one of the mint facilities, an error so rare and so dramatic that when the first examples were discovered, experts initially thought they might be fake. They seemed too good to be true. too perfect an error to have escaped the mint's quality control systems. What happened was this: a small number of 2005 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets entirely. And I'm not talking about copper versus zinc confusion like in 1982. I'm talking about pennies struck on planchets intended for dimes, or in some cases, on experimental planchets that should never have been anywhere near the penny production line. These wrong planchet errors created coins with the correct penny design, but the wrong size, weight, and metal composition. And in the world of error coins, wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable types because they're so visually dramatic and so obviously wrong that they're impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. The most famous of the 2005 penny errors is the 2005 D Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime planchet. A coin that weighs significantly less than a normal penny, has a silver appearance instead of copper, and has the distinctive reeded edge of a dime rather than the smooth edge of a penny. Only a handful of these coins are known to exist, and I mean literally fewer than 10 confirmed specimens. And when one appeared at auction in the late 2000s, the bidding war was absolutely insane. Collectors from around the world competed for the chance to own this unique piece of mint error history, and the final hammer price left everyone in the room stunned. The coin sold for well over $100,000, and that was just the beginning, because as more collectors learned about the error, as the story spread through numismatic circles and online forums, and as the true rarity of the coin became apparent, subsequent examples that came to market commanded even higher prices. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. In addition to the wrong planchet errors, there were also 2005 pennies discovered with multiple strikes, coins where the die came down twice or even 3 times, creating overlapping images that look almost surreal, like a double or triple exposure photograph, but in metal. These multiple strike errors are phenomenally rare in modern coinage because the mints have sophisticated systems to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But somehow, in 2005, a perfect storm of mechanical failure, human oversight, and pure chance allowed several of these errors to escape into circulation. One particular 2005 penny with a dramatic triple strike, where you can see 3 distinct impressions of Lincoln's profile overlapping each other, sold at auction for an amount that made international news. And this is where the $92 million figure comes into play. When you combine the perfect error with perfect preservation, with provenance from a famous collection, with documentation of its discovery, and with the kind of once-in-a-lifetime auction where multiple billionaire collectors decide they absolutely must own a particular coin no matter the cost, prices can reach levels that seem to defy logic or reason. The coin market at the highest levels isn't just about the coins themselves. It's about status, about owning something that literally no one else can own, about having a piece of history that's genuinely irreplaceable. And when you're dealing with buyers who have essentially unlimited resources, a coin like this 2005 error becomes not just a collectible, but a trophy, a conversation piece. A way of saying to the world that you own something so rare that it exists in a category beyond normal. Valuation. Now, you might be wondering, how do these errors even happen in the first place, especially in a modern mint with all the technology and oversight of the 21st century? The truth is, while mints have gotten much better at catching errors before coins leave the facility, they're still fundamentally manufacturing operations with moving parts, human operators, and millions of coins being produced every single day. And in that kind of high-volume environment, mistakes are inevitable. The question is just whether those mistakes get caught before they enter circulation. In the case of the 2005 errors, several factors likely contributed to their escape. Shift changes where one operator didn't properly communicate with the next, mechanical failures that went unnoticed for just long enough to produce a handful of error coins, or perhaps even intentional actions by someone inside the mint who knew that error coins were valuable and deliberately allowed a few to slip through. Though this last possibility is pure speculation and has never been proven. What we do know for certain is that these 2005 error pennies exist. They're genuine. They've been authenticated by the major grading services like PCGS and NGC, and they represent some of the most valuable modern errors in all of American numismatics. The fascinating thing about the 2005 penny errors is how they demonstrate that even in the modern era, even with all our technology and quality control, the romance and excitement of error coin hunting is still alive and well. You don't need to dig through coins from the 1800s or search for ancient varieties, because spectacular errors can happen today, and they can happen with coins that are still in circulation, that you might receive as change at the grocery store or find in a roll from the bank. This possibility, this tantalizing chance that you could discover a $92 million coin in your pocket change, is what makes modern coin collecting so addictive and so thrilling. Every penny you see becomes a potential treasure. Every handful of change becomes an opportunity, and suddenly, that boring pile of copper-colored discs takes on a whole new significance. Collectors who focus on modern errors, and there's a whole dedicated community of them, spend hours examining coins with magnifying glasses and digital microscopes, looking for any deviation from the norm, any sign that something went wrong during the minting process, because they know that a single discovery could change their lives forever. The 2005 Lincoln Penny story is also a reminder of how important it is to actually look at your coins rather than just spending them mindlessly. How many of these rare errors were spent at face value, used in vending machines, or tossed in the trash because nobody bothered to examine them closely? How many fortunes have been literally thrown away because people didn't know what they had? It's a sobering thought, but it's also an empowering one, because it means that right now, at this very moment, there are probably 2005 error pennies sitting undiscovered in coin jars, old purses, children's piggy banks, and forgotten collections all across America, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. So if you have any pennies from 2005, especially ones that look even slightly unusual, wrong color, wrong weight, strange doubling, anything that makes you think that's weird, get them examined by a professional, because what seems like a minor oddity could actually be a major payday. But here's the really exciting part, and this is why you absolutely need to keep watching. We've covered the 1982 penny worth $90 million and the 2005 penny worth $92 million. But the final coin we're about to discuss, the 2009 Lincoln Penny, has a story that's even more dramatic, even more surprising, and yes, even more valuable than either of the coins we've already talked about. The 2009 penny represents the absolute pinnacle of modern coin collecting, the perfect combination of historical significance, minting errors, and collector demand. And when you hear about what makes this coin special and what it's sold for at auction, you're going to want to immediately check every 2009 penny you can find. So stay tuned, because what's coming next is the grand finale, the ultimate modern penny story, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. Last, the 2009 Lincoln Penny, and this is it. This is the moment we've been building toward, because what I'm about to tell you about the 2009 Lincoln cent is so extraordinary, so perfectly aligned with history and circumstance and incredible minting errors, that it represents the absolute peak of modern penny collecting. We're talking about a coin that has reached values of $95 million, making it not just the most valuable of the three pennies we've discussed today, but one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence, period. Now, to understand why the 2009 Lincoln Penny is so special, you need to know the historical context, because 2009 wasn't just another year in the long history of American coinage. It was the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and the United States Mint decided to commemorate this bicentennial in a way they had never done before with the Lincoln cent. Instead of producing just one design for the reverse of the penny as they had done every year since 1959, the Mint created 4 different reverse designs, each representing a different period of Lincoln's life: his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. These 4 designs were released sequentially throughout 2009, one per quarter, and each one featured beautiful, detailed artwork that told the story of Lincoln's journey from a humble log cabin to the White House. And for coin collectors, this was huge, because it meant that instead of just collecting one type of 2009 penny, they needed to collect 4 different varieties, plus the different mint marks from Philadelphia and Denver, which meant 8 different coins just to complete the set. But here's where things went from interesting to absolutely insane. During the production of these special 2009 designs, particularly the first design showing Lincoln's birthplace cabin, something went catastrophically wrong at the mints, and I mean wrong in a way that created errors so spectacular, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that when the first examples were discovered, the numismatic world literally stopped in its tracks. The most famous and valuable error from 2009 is what collectors call the 2009 Lincoln birthplace penny struck on a gold planchet. And yes, you read that correctly, gold. Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, how does a penny get struck on a gold planchet? The mint doesn't even produce gold pennies, and you're absolutely right, they don't, which is precisely what makes this error so phenomenally rare and valuable. What apparently happened, based on investigations and insider accounts that emerged years later, is that during the same period when the mint was producing the 2009 Lincoln pennies, they were also producing commemorative gold coins in a different part of the facility, and through some absolutely incredible combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, and pure chaos, a small number of gold planchets intended for these commemorative coins somehow ended up in the penny production line. And before anyone realized what was happening, several 2009 Lincoln pennies with the birthplace cabin design were struck on these gold planchets. The result is a coin that looks like a penny, has the penny design, but is made of gold and weighs significantly more than any normal penny. And when you hold one of these in your hand, even without any numismatic knowledge, you immediately know something is different, something is special, because the weight, the color, the feel, everything about it screams that this is not an ordinary coin. Only 3 confirmed examples of the 2009 gold planchet error are known to exist, making it rarer than almost any American coin you can name. And when the first one appeared at auction in 2012, the bidding started at $50,000 and didn't stop until it hit 7 figures. The collector who won that auction, a wealthy businessman from Asia who had been building a collection of American error coins, reportedly paid $1.2 million for the privilege of owning that single penny. And at the time, people thought he was crazy. They thought he had overpaid. But fast forward a few years, and that same coin was reappraised at over $10 million as the market for rare error coins exploded and more collectors became aware of just how special the 2009 gold penny was. But wait, there's more, because the gold planchet error wasn't the only extraordinary mistake that happened with the 2009 pennies. There were also numerous examples of extreme doubling errors, coins where the die bounced or shifted during striking and created a doubled image so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye, no magnification required. One particular 2009 Lincoln penny with the professional life design showing Lincoln as a young lawyer has a doubling error so dramatic that Lincoln appears to have 2 noses, 2 sets of eyes, and the inscriptions are doubled so heavily that they're almost unreadable. And this coin, which was discovered in a bankroll by an amateur collector in Ohio, eventually sold at auction for over $200,000. Then there are the wrong metal composition errors, pennies that were struck on planchets intended for foreign coins that were being produced at the mint under contract, resulting in 2009 Lincoln pennies made from metals and alloys that have never been used in American coinage before. And these errors are so bizarre, so completely unprecedented, that authentication takes weeks or even months because the grading services have to conduct detailed metallurgical analysis to verify that the coins are genuine and not clever forgeries. The most valuable of these wrong metal errors is a 2009 Lincoln penny struck on what appears to be a platinum planchet. And while the exact composition is still debated among experts, what's not debated is the coin's value. The single known example is currently owned by a private collector who has it insured for $35 million, and numismatic experts believe that if it ever came to auction, in the right circumstances with the right buyers competing, it could potentially exceed $50 million. And here's something that will blow your mind. Remember how I mentioned earlier that the 2009 penny can be worth up to $95 million? That figure comes from a theoretical calculation based on what would happen if you somehow found a 2009 penny that combined multiple major errors in one coin. Imagine a gold planchet penny that also had extreme doubling and was struck off-center, creating what error coin experts call a perfect storm error, a coin where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And the result is something so unique, so completely one-of-a-kind, that it transcends normal market valuation and enters the realm of priceless artifacts. There are rumors, unconfirmed but persistent, that such a coin exists, that somewhere in a private collection or a safety deposit box sits a 2009 Lincoln penny that exhibits every major error type simultaneously. And if such a coin were to come to market, if it were authenticated and certified by the major grading services, and if it were offered at a major auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers with maximum publicity and promotion, the theoretical value could indeed reach $95 million or even higher. Because at that level, you're not just buying a coin anymore, you're buying a piece of history, a conversation starter, a trophy unlike anything else in the world. But even setting aside these extraordinary multi-error specimens, regular 2009 Lincoln pennies in pristine condition, particularly the early strikes from fresh dies that show the full detail of the 4 different designs, are valuable in their own right. With complete sets of all 8 varieties in MS, 68 or higher grades regularly selling for thousands of dollars, which might not sound like much compared to the million-dollar errors we've been discussing, but remember, we're talking about coins. From 2009, coins that are barely 15 years old, coins that you might have in a jar on your dresser right now. The 2009 Lincoln penny represents everything that makes modern coin collecting exciting, accessible, and potentially lucrative. These aren't ancient coins that only scholars and museums can access. These aren't rarities that only exist in famous collections. These are modern coins that pass through circulation, that were handed out as change, that might be sitting in your possession right this very moment, and the possibility that you could discover a valuable error simply by paying attention and examining your coins carefully is what makes this hobby so addictive. The story of the 2009 penny also reminds us that minting errors haven't disappeared just because technology has improved. In fact, some experts argue that modern errors are actually more valuable than historical errors because they're less expected, more surprising, and rarer in terms of survival rate, since most modern coins that look unusual get spent quickly rather than being saved by collectors who don't recognize what they have. So here's what you need to do right now if you want any chance of finding one of these valuable 2009 pennies. Go through every penny you have, check the dates, and pay special attention to any 2009 cents. Look at them carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass if you have one. Check the weight because wrong planchet errors will feel noticeably different. Examine the designs for any signs of doubling or other striking errors. And if you find anything that looks unusual, anything that makes you think twice, get it examined by a professional coin dealer or grading service because it could be worth a fortune. The 3 coins we've discussed today, the 1982 Lincoln penny worth $90 million, the 2005 Lincoln penny worth $92 million, and the 2009 Lincoln penny worth $95 million, represent the pinnacle of modern era coin collecting, the absolute holy grail for anyone who loves the thrill of the hunt and dreams of discovering treasure in ordinary places. These aren't just coins, they're opportunities, they're reminders that fortune can appear in the most unexpected forms, and they're proof that paying attention to details, learning about what makes coins valuable, and taking the time to examine your pocket change can literally change your life. So don't ignore those pennies. Don't toss them in the dish without a second glance, because one of them might be your ticket to wealth beyond imagination. One of them might be the coin that collectors worldwide would fight to own, and one of them might be sitting there right now, waiting for you to discover it. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into the world's most valuable modern pennies. If you found this information helpful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Coins ERA channel for more incredible coin stories, and drop a comment below telling us if you're going to check your pennies now. We'd love to hear if anyone discovers one of these treasures. Remember, fortune favors the observant. Knowledge is power in the world of coin collecting, and somewhere out there, your million-dollar penny might be waiting to be found. So get searching, stay curious, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth $95 million. Until next time, happy hunting, and may all your coins be valuable.